changes, we'll keep you up to date with the latest information. News Talk KVNU 102 FM 610 AM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Whole Tree Care. The North Park Police Department has a new chief, Kent Goodrich, who has spent the past 17 years with the Utah Highway Patrol, will begin leading the department later this month. North Logan Mayor Lindsay Peterson said that the cities are ecstatic to have a person of Trooper Goodrich's caliber leading the department and look forward to his service with the NPPD. Goodrich will replace Chief Ulysses Black, who resigned suddenly in July after being arrested for driving under the influence in Idaho. Assistant Chief Justice Olson has been serving as interim chief, while the North Park Police Commission, made up of city leaders, citizens, and law enforcement personnel, conducted an exploratory search for the new leader. Goodrich graduated from the Bridgeland Applied Technology College Police Academy in 2004. He then served as a reserve officer with the Logan City Police Department before being hired by the Cache County Sheriff's Office in May 2005. He worked as a deputy for the Sheriff's Office and was assigned to the city of Hiram, functioning as a field training officer and member of the Gang Task Force. In 2008, Goodrich was hired on with the Utah Highway Patrol and moved his family to Far West. He worked at the Utah State Capitol building as part of the Dignitary Protection Section. And in 2012, Goodrich returned to Cache Valley with the UHP. He continued working as a trooper assigned to Section 1, helping cover calls for service in Cache and Ridge counties. He was a part of UHP's major crash investigation team, investigating fatal accidents in the area. KVNU News Time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight, widespread smoke continuing from the wildfires to our northwest and north. That will continue, unfortunately, at least through Saturday evening. Mostly clear otherwise, low around 45, and then patchy smoke, sunny around 81 tomorrow, sunny around 86 on Sunday. We've stayed in the 70s today. 78 has been our high. It is 77 here at KVNU, and there is an air quality alert that's in effect for much of Idaho, including Franklin County, so the northern part of Cache Valley. KVNU weather is brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. Make your appointment at Logan Dental Associates with Dr. Brandon Preby, Curtis Taylor, or Anthony Larson. Also, Dr. Paul Harris can be found at Logan Dental Associates, or visit them at their Cherry Creek Dental office in Richmond.
Man, let's talk about something serious.
I tried the pill. It didn't work.
No, I'm talking about your yard, specifically trees and shrubs. They need your attention. You can't just let them grow unruly and wild, like your beard.
Hey!
Call Hull Tree Care. They have the crew, the experience, and knowledge to trim your trees and shrubs right. Call 760-6587 and ask for their radio discount. Hull Tree Care. That's Hull Tree Care. 760-6587.
KVNU News Time 5:08. With 8 new COVID-19 deaths the last 7 days, Utah's closing in on 5,000 since the start of the pandemic. Deaths remain at 257 within the Bear River Health District, including Cache, Box Elder, and Ridge counties. Since the outbreak, 56,519 total positive cases have been found in the district, 39,985 of them in Cache County. There were 165 new cases in the district the last week, and over 68% of the northern Utah population 5 and older has received at least one dose of the vaccine. 2,262 patients in northern Utah have been hospitalized with COVID. Utah's Division of Health and Human Services reported 122 COVID patients in the state's hospitals as of Thursday. That's 37 fewer than last week. Included in those numbers are 22 COVID patients in intensive care. Since the start of the pandemic, there have been 38,167 COVID hospitalizations in the state of Utah. And a boy under the age of 10 died. Multiple people were injured after a vehicle hauler slammed into cars stopped on the interstate in Salt Lake County. The crash happened Thursday afternoon around 4:30 on westbound I-215 in Midvale. Lieutenant Jelaine Hawks with the Utah Highway Patrol said the driver of the hauler did not notice drivers were stopped and failed to slow down before slamming into multiple vehicles. KUTV reports the child who was killed was in one of the first vehicles struck. His mother and 2 sisters were also in the vehicle. Officials said the boy died at the scene. The sisters were transported to area hospitals with critical injuries. Hawks said the girls appeared to be doing better but would likely require surgeries. And the mother was conscious at the scene but also was listed with critical injuries. A total of 9 people were injured in the crash, many with sore necks and lacerations. KBNU News Time is 5:11. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
For the People, weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Hi, this is Chris Wilson at Wilson Motor Company. If you're looking for a pre-owned vehicle, now is the time to buy during our Labor Day clearance sales event. We have reduced the prices on over 150 pre-owned vehicles with over 125 4x4 trucks and all-wheel drive vehicles. We can help you find the right vehicle. Check out our inventory online at wilsonmotor.com or drop in for a test drive at one of our 2 great locations.
Wilson Motor Company, we make car buying easy.
Loveland Living Planet Aquarium takes us outside our everyday lives into a world of discovery. It's a chance to explore our innate curiosity, discover animals from around the world, and experience the all-new outdoor plaza and eco. More to explore at Loveland Living Planet Aquarium. Reserve your visit at thelivingplanet.com.
Our most vulnerable veterans are isolated at hospitals, and during their greatest time of need, their loved ones can have little or no contact with them. Imagine having to shelter in place forever. Learn how you can help at healvets.org. Help Heal Veterans, with the support of citizens like you, is making things better together. Learn more at healvets.org. This message is furnished by Help Heal Veterans, a not-for-profit organization.
Why did I wait so long to see a retina specialist?
Retinal disease can steal your eyesight, but it doesn't have to. Patients who seek care from a retina specialist have the best chance of preventing vision loss due to age-related macular degeneration or diabetic retinopathy. AMD symptoms to look out for are distortion or warping of straight lines, as well as blurred or loss of central vision. Patients with diabetic retinopathy should seek treatment if they notice the appearance of spots or floaters or blurred and distorted vision. Visit seeforalifetime.org.
My name is Dr. Brandon Prevey, and I love being a dentist. I work with Drs. Curtis Taylor, Anthony Larson, and Paul Harris. When people ask where our office is, I actually have 2 answers. First, I spend part of the week at Logan Dental Associates, and then second, I spend the other part at Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. Both locations are a full-service dental office and can take care of everyone in the family. Call or go online and make your appointment with the office that's most convenient for you. Logan Dental Associates in Logan or Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond.
This is James Stevens with White Pine Funeral Services. We are humbled by and grateful for the tremendous support we have been shown since opening our doors nearly 2 years ago. So we just want to say thank you. On behalf of everyone at White Pine, first and foremost, thank you for allowing us the honor and privilege of serving you and caring for your loved ones. Additionally, thank you for voting White Pine the best mortuary in Cache Valley in both 2021 and 2022.
White Pine Funeral Services. Here when you need us most.
What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Welcome to the For the People movie show. Andy Morgan joining us in just a bit. Actually have new films in theaters to talk about this week, something we haven't really had for a couple of weeks now, at least here in Utah. with films coming out, but nothing really, at least noteworthy or interesting, making its way to our state. That is not the case, and I'm just going to give it a little plug. I shouldn't, because I haven't seen the movie. It might be awful, as far as I know. It's likely that it's going to be awful. But if you have not seen the trailer for for the new horror movie opening this weekend, Barbarian, if you're a fan of horror movie, it's pretty rare. I've seen so many horror movies, and I'm such a fan, even some that I've watched multiple times, like the Paranormal Activity movies. It's very rare for me to actually be... I can be creeped out. I can be uncomfortable, but it's usually because you know what's about to happen. So it's really rare that something surprises me in a horror movie, and when it does, I love it. I loved It Follows. If you haven't seen that, I think it's still one of my absolute favorite horror movies. Spoiler alert, I'm just going to say it. I've never said this on air. You never see the monster. Ever. And yet somehow it's one of the creepiest and most atmospheric horror movies that I've ever seen. So a little plug for that one. And hopefully that doesn't spoil it for you, but it's pretty obvious from the start you're not going to see the monster, or that it's invisible, or they never really explain it. So that one surprised me. Others have had moments that surprised me. I don't remember a time that a trailer actually scared me. But there is a scene in the trailer which is rated for all audiences. It's nothing gory or profane or anything like that. It's just a trailer for a movie, and it made me jump. So that's my one plug for something that you should see this week or weekend, even if you don't see the movie itself, which, by the way, is not in, well, let me double check this. It was not in Logan last I looked. Let me double check and see if maybe they've updated a little bit at the Megaplex. I'll do that during the break. But as of right now, Barbarian is not playing anywhere. They did update. I am wrong. It is playing at the Providence Megaplex alongside Spider-Man No Way From Home, the bonus content edition. Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. That is the name of the movie. I'm just reading it. It's a comedy. And Medieval, which looks really cool and atmospheric, but also is getting just horrible reviews. Playing at the University Megaplex Theater here in Logan. Bullet Train with Brad Pitt still playing. Top Gun Maverick, surprisingly still playing. Thor Love and Thunder back in theaters. Definitely worth your time if you didn't see that one. It also hits Disney Plus, or did hit Disney Plus today. The Invitation playing at the University Theater Megaplex alongside Spider-Man No Way From Home, the new bonus content edition. The Invitation is a horror movie. We talked about it briefly last week in the way that you would briefly talk about a movie like this. It looks pretty cookie cutter. I don't know. It's not landing with audiences or critics on any of the review sites. And finally, in theaters here in Logan, what you can get out and see this week, Gigi and Nate. That is the name of a new film. It stars Jim Belushi. He's not been anything for a while. Josephine Langford, Charlie Rowe, and Marcia Gay Harden. And it's the story of Nate Gibson, a young man whose life is turned upside down after he suffers a near-fatal illness and is left overnight, literally, true story, a quadriplegic. Moving forward, this is the dramatization, not a documentary, by the way. That's important to remember. So he then gets a service animal, Gigi, which is a capuchin monkey, and she's trained to assist Nate, but ends up assisting him in things she's not even trained to do, as the description says, including discovering hope. So there you have it. I shouldn't laugh. I'm not mocking. These movies are very popular in certain crowds, and I get it, but not for me. Anyway, that's what you can see in theaters this week. There is plenty to see on the streaming services, and we'll be talking about that. Andy Morgan joining us now on the other side. We'll talk a little bit about the big premiere everyone's discussing, Amazon's The Rings of Power, their stab at a Lord of the Rings franchise. We'll be back with more of The Movie Show right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
When it comes to your health and deadly diseases, your body doesn't always give warning signs. You won't see a big, bright alert button above your head or hear some upbeat notification jingle when something's not right. Fortunately, there's something you can do to protect yourself and stay healthy now and into the future. Schedule your health screenings and immunizations to stay up to date on your well-being. Visit uptodate.utah.gov to learn more.
Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology would like to thank you for voting them Best Audiologist 2 years running in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Daines by calling 753-HEAR or visit cachehearing.com.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
Welcome back to the For the People movie show with Andy Morgan joining us here in the studio. We'll be talking Amazon's Rings of Power, also HBO with their prequel to Game of Thrones called Dragons Fly or something like that.
So
and then
irritated.
I don't know if you heard as you were coming to the studio. I opened the show recommending everyone. I haven't seen the movie.
Is there a fire? Is that what you told everyone?
No, it's horrible right now. The smoke. It's coming from Idaho and Montana and Oregon and Washington. No, I told everyone to go watch the and again, the movie might be horrible. I'm not endorsing the movie, but the Barbarian trailer. I haven't had a trailer make me jump in years.
Yeah,
and it scared me.
So
I jumped.
There's a couple things we're going to talk about. So we wanted to talk about this a couple weeks ago, and we didn't really have time. And now that we're kind of, I won't say we're in a lull because there's never a lull really in movies anymore. You might have a week now, and then they're like, hey, guess what?
Surprise!
Right now we're targeting the January blockbusters. But what I think we're going to, so next week we're going to talk Barbarian. We're going to talk about that.
Speaking of smoke, whoa.
And then we're also going to talk about, and I can't wait for this. I can't wait. Then we're going to talk about Pinocchio, the Disney Plus remake with Tom Hanks. And I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, those are the two things we'll focus on. We'll probably get to 3,000 years or whatever it is of longing. The adult Aladdin, as it were. But we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings, the new Rings of Power, right? And we all know kind of the whole basis of this. At the beginning of the original Lord of the Rings, at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, and the show opens up and there's that voice that's like, something's in the air. I can feel it in the water. It's Galadriel, right? Who's one of the big characters in this. And then, she kind of gives a summary. She's like, look, if you didn't read the books, here's the basic idea, right? Yeah. And she's like, there was all these rings of power, the dwarves and the elves and the men who were the worst. Anyhow, by the way, I don't mean that men, but like humans, basically.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of, and we can get into this in a minute, but it's the same thing with House of the Dragon, right? Is House of the Dragon now is a prequel to Game of Thrones that aired from 2011 to 2019.
Yeah.
Supposedly had a controversial last two seasons because fans are morons. And that's another thing we're going to I want to talk about that today because
moron fans?
What I can't figure out, and I'm basically gonna uncork my fury right now. We're just going to let it let it spill out.
Let it out.
I don't know if it's a certain age group, if it's just everyone is an entitled social media user now who thinks everyone wants to hear their opinion, which we don't.
I can answer that one. I really think social media is just the megaphone for these people that have always existed.
Oh,
that's
right.
my theory.
So basically you're saying
so you're hearing from them when before you could just not hear from them.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of forced to.
Yeah, anyway, so there's that.
Because I see it. So I don't talk a lot about sports on my social media channels. You know that. But I follow a lot of you who do.
Okay.
Because you inform me and keep me posted about things that I probably missed.
I don't think I inform you.
But I also see some of the people that y'all have to interact with.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've watched that for years, and I realized that, no, these people have always existed. I've sat in front of them at many USU games.
I think you're right.
But now
they have a megaphone.
Now they can be right there on Donovan Mitchell's tweet.
Yeah.
So you're kind of forced to experience it.
Well, this is actually an interesting topic. We could talk about this for days. And so here's a comment I made about, not to switch gears here, but the whole Donovan Mitchell trade from Utah. And I think this applies to movies, so I'm gonna say this real briefly.
We always get there in the end, you know.
Well, it's usually Star Wars.
Take the long way, but
here's what. So, you know, Donovan Mitchell comes in 2017, 2018. That season, his rookie year, he's kind of like the balm of Gilead for Gordon Hayward's departure, right? Because the Jazz had made the playoffs.
Everyone's freaking out.
Right.
And Donovan comes in there like, oh, okay.
The Jazz had made the second round of the playoffs the year prior. They had a pretty good core.
Yeah.
Hayward leaves, and everyone's like, oh, great, we're back to rebuilding. Mitchell comes in, and it kind of looked that way, to be honest, the first of the season, and then just something clicked with the group. With Mitchell was in the Rookie of the Year hunt. He won the dunk contest. I mean, it was like we hadn't had that dynamic of a athlete in Utah since the Karl Malone, John Stockton days. Well, actually, probably Darren Williams. That's probably the last one, right? But, and weirdly, the Darren Williams experiment ended a lot like the Donovan Mitchell one did. So my point is, he comes in, you know, Balm of Gilead. He's around here for a couple years. And I think what changed, in my opinion, was I think his representation, his agency, I think they did some things to, you know, like, hey, man, he's so much better if you were in New York or somewhere else. Bigger market, you know, way more opportunities. And then I think the stuff with COVID hit. And when the George Floyd protests erupted, you know, and Donovan felt, you know, not responsible, but he felt duty bound to.
Everyone kept turning to him.
Well, he felt duty. I mean, and it's his right. He should share his opinion. He can do that. People need to get over it. But, you know, here's the thing: did the really nasty opinions expressed to him in his social media posts and things like that? You know, some of these fan incidents they had at the Vivint Arena with, you know, some racist fans, especially with Russell Westbrook.
Well, there was the run-in, well, not really run-in, but the back and forth between he and the Senate President, Stuart Adams.
And so
Stuart Adams goes to some conference in another state and basically says, well, we need to educate Donovan Mitchell on the black experience in America.
Thanks, white guy.
Tiny white guy. Keebler Elf.
Yeah, thanks.
And he goes to this conference and says, well, we need what we need to do. And Mitchell was so gracious about that. He could have ripped them. I mean, that would have not played well. And he was so gracious. And he said, perhaps you could learn something from me. And so I do wonder if that played a part in it, if he had an unpleasant experience here. But he says he didn't.
So here's
anyway. I derailed you.
No.
This was slow walk back to movies.
I was coming really close here. Here's my thing.
I'll shut up.
So you have social media folks that don't represent the majority of people, because I'm going to assume, you know, there are racists all throughout Utah. And does Utah have a racism problem? Of course. You know, I think we can see those things. But it didn't represent the bulk of Jazz fans, you know? Yeah. And so I think what happens is you saw
that with the Jazz fans against racism.
Right, yeah.
Kind of movement within the Jazz
and
base.
So go shift that to entertainment, right? You know, you've got this diverse cast for Lord of the Rings. You know, you got people of color. You've got, you know, women and men, all just across the spectrum of who's cast in this movie. It's very diverse. It's awesome. And you got people that are mad about that, and then they get mad, and then they drop those racist comments on these actors' Twitter and Instagram, and
what they're mad about is there's a black elf. I mean that's literally I can't
Why? And I don't understand why
glorify it more than that. That's literally what these people are upset about.
I had a conversation with somebody.
I saw a funny tweet. It said, "I'm not upset the elf is black. I just want historical accuracy. I say about a show with elves and trolls." It was the best. I mean, that tweet just
same thing with Game of
absolute
Thrones,
ridiculousness of
or
the
Star
whole thing.
Wars. Oh yeah, there's a black stormtrooper in space in a land that doesn't exist. Weird.
What I don't get is I don't understand why it upsets people.
Well, this
I mean,
guy.
there were way more glaring things to be upset about.
You get this comment.
Rings of power.
I saw this thread. Somebody said, "Well, what if we took Roots and cast Roots with white people?" And I was like, "That would actually be on par for your viewpoint."
One, Roots is actual history. This is fantasy.
I'll say this. I'll say this one time. I said this I had a conversation about movies with someone a couple weeks ago, and they asked me that. They said, "Don't you think movies are getting too political?" And my comment was, I asked, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, there's different colored people and gays and things." Yeah. And I said, there are gays and different colored people in our society, right? And that's called representation. You want to see yourself on the screen, and I don't understand why that.
Movies have always reflected real life.
Bothers.
We've had this discussion before. Are they lagging indicators or precedents? Mm-hmm. And it maybe there isn't one answer to that, but they've always been reflective of. So yeah, I mean, you shouldn't. I don't understand why it upsets people to see other people different from them represented in. How does that detract from your movie-going experience?
What is it?
And if it does, maybe you're the problem.
Right.
I mean, really.
Yep.
And maybe we should just leave it there because I don't get how a black stormtrooper is upsetting.
Well, that's the part, is that when they say, well, there's an agenda.
I do get how R2-D2's lack of screen time is upsetting in the new movies.
Because there's not, I don't think there's an agenda, right? Putting a person of color in a lead role is not an agenda.
Yeah.
Having a gay character is not an agenda. It's called representation. That's what our society looks like.
Really quick to at the risk of upsetting people in the opposite direction from everything that we've just said, I do think things can go too far sometimes.
There's going to be overcorrections.
Some of the people upset at, I don't remember what it was. It was Natalie Portman, and she was going to play
We talked
role,
about this,
and I thought.
Well, it's like the debate.
Is it really that offensive that she would be playing that role? I mean, should it be that offensive?
Right. So if Rain Man was made today, would they cast an actual autistic man?
Yeah.
Versus Dustin Hoffman.
And when they cast Dustin Hoffman because they needed someone that was that good of an actor. Which I think should be okay.
I think it's
also,
acting.
When you're acting, aren't you faking things in general? So yeah, I do think it goes too far in the opposite direction if you imply
somebody right now is pounding the keys down, getting ready to dial.
Getting angry. I do think it can go too far in the other direction. But I'm sorry, if a black stormtrooper upsets you, it's not Hollywood with the problem.
And I can't speak
it's
to
you.
I can't speak to how casting works. But if I'm sitting down and there are 25 Asian actresses that could play an Asian character, and I go, why don't we go with Scarlett Johansson? That may be the wrong.
I get that.
I get what you're saying. I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to wrap back into that and say you're 100% right, but also there's got to be a balance. I get
that
they throw it out. They do too much sometimes.
It's a good idea to try. To make sure the representation is
those Hollywood people.
And if there's an Asian character, to find an Asian actor, that would just make sense. But at the same time, if you're doing a movie about a historical figure who could be played by Natalie Portman, maybe she's not the best example because someone who's really good. No, she's great. But you see what I'm getting at?
For Best Actress.
How
dare you?
It sort of seems silly to me sometimes.
Disparage Queen Amidala.
I'm upset that this person's going to go fake something when their whole job is faking something. They're actors.
I demand that now they cast real serial killers as serial killers. I also think it'd be better in the movie because then the threat is real.
That's true.
Hey,
good point,
just
actually.
FYI, the guy we got to play the killer, he's a real killer.
And we let him go when filming was done.
Wait,
so
ow!
Good luck, y'all.
Is this a real knife? I don't like this.
Enjoy the movie.
Hey, De Niro did method acting. Suck it up.
Well, and
right?
also, how do you do that with something like Rings of Power? You know, like seriously, how do you?
What you do is you call Doctor Strange and you have him open a little sparkly hole in the universe.
I'm still mad at Doctor Strange.
And then you, you know what? Actually, really quick, is we're talking about we're going to get into obviously Rings of Power a little bit more deep and House of the Dragon and talk about what we think about those. But I do have one question for you. Have you watched She-Hulk?
Yes,
I like it.
Just barely. I watched half of the first episode.
Okay,
and
there's
I fell asleep,
4,
but it was good. It was funny.
That doesn't really.
I know that's not a ringing.
I watched half of. I watched
if
half
it makes
of
you feel
one.
better, I did the same thing during the first episode of House of Dragons.
Okay.
I did the same thing the first episode of Rings of Power.
Jason, we may need to talk about the kind of vitamins that you're taking.
Well, my problem is I can't. I in my head I think I can't sleep. I'm going to start something.
Oh, and then you
I'm
watch
like,
it.
Oh, I
and
can
then
sleep now.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah,
that's like that's me and TikTok.
I've seen half of every episode of Arrested Development and The Simpsons at least 5 times.
That is funny.
I just start them because I know I won't miss anything I haven't seen.
So there's a lot of hate for She-Hulk. Marvel fans are. There's this thing out there right now where it's like, what is Marvel doing? They've just fallen from grace. And listen, I was critical.
Oh, no, it's good.
I've been critical of Marvel. I don't think that they have a track record of just knocking out of the park over the last year. But I will say this: go back and watch the other movies.
Yeah.
There is some corny stuff, right? It's corny.
She-Hulk and Miss Marvel, I think fit better than a lot of the stuff that came right after.
Well,
the last Avengers movie.
Watch Thor when he's throwing down, with his albino beard and the,
Yeah, I forgot about that.
More pancakes, please. Why is that not? But Dancing with Megan Thee Stallion is
Somehow
dumb.
was too much.
Well, and here's my other comment too, right? And then there's this big thing with Thor: Love and Thunder, and I just do not get the hate.
Yeah.
And so I asked Sam this question. Sam was going to come with me because I posed this deep thought to him. He saw me. I was super frustrated. I was scrolling through TikTok, and everything I was seeing was like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I'm watching House of Dragons after I had such a traumatic experience with season 8.
Because they didn't like the ending.
Because my favorite character didn't make it to the throne.
And don't get me wrong, I
hope they remake it.
I think it's lame Bran was king, honestly. But it didn't ruin it.
But
I had my preferences.
But
they
that's
didn't
my
go
thing.
with them, and I liked it still.
And isn't that how a story goes?
Yeah.
It may not go the way you want.
To be fully transparent, I'm also a defender of the way The Sopranos ended, which was the first time fans lost their collective minds. We've got to go
There's
to the
actually
news
some
break,
Sopranos references in episode 4 of She-Hulk.
Really?
I shouldn't say
I'll get to
references.
that.
That is it is real. They spin a well on it.
I liked that David Chase left you without an answer on whether he lived or died. I thought
I loved every season of Game of Thrones 1 to 8, and I have the controversial opinion that 4 forward was the best of all of it.
I liked the last half of 3 into 4 and 5. Those were when I was just glued to that show.
My thing is, I know we got to go to the news, but my one last comment is we are in the golden age of content.
Yeah.
It's Game of Thrones. Calm down and enjoy it.
See what they do with it.
It's Star Wars. Calm down and enjoy it. If you don't like it, fine.
Yeah.
But stop complaining about it.
I would endorse that, and despite what I'm about to say on the other side about episode 1. The For the People movie show with Andy Morgan continues right after this. Look at the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. A 34-year-old Logan man has confessed to trying to kidnap a woman last March near Logan High School. Carlos Cisneros Diaz accepted a plea deal while continuing to claim the crime was an accident. Cisneros Diaz appeared Wednesday in First District Court, pleading guilty to attempted aggravated kidnapping, amended to a second-degree felony, and robbery modified to a third-degree felony. He was arrested in March after a woman called police reporting he had tried to pull her into his car as she was walking near 150 West 300 South in Logan. After she fought back, he drove away in a gray Honda Civic. Cisneros Diaz was identified after pictures of his car were released. Officers from the Brigham City Police Department contacted the Logan Department, reporting they had arrested the driver of a similar vehicle for a DUI the next morning. He had been witnessed driving recklessly through Sardine Canyon, US 8991. When investigators questioned Cisneros Diaz, he admitted to being in the area at the time of the crime. He said he had been drinking and arguing with his wife and left his home during the fight to buy cigarettes. As police continued to question Cisneros Diaz, he claimed that he had stopped on 300 South and assaulted a woman he thought was his wife to take her back home. He explained that when he realized the victim was not his spouse, he let her go and drove away. The victim, a woman in her 30s, was punched in the face during the brief struggle but was otherwise unharmed. Paramedics treated her at the scene for a cut below her eye. Cisneros Diaz remains in jail, being held without bond. He could face up to 15 years in prison when sentenced October 19th. A former bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been arrested as part of an ongoing sex abuse investigation involving multiple victims over the course of several decades. 77-year-old Carl Johnson was arrested in Orem on Wednesday and booked into the Davis County Jail on 7 counts of aggravated sexual abuse of a child. Detectives say Johnson abused children as young as 2 and held numerous positions of trust in the church, including as a bishop. Johnson also served as mayor of West Bountiful City in the 90s. The Davis County Sheriff's Office estimates there are at least 6 victims and more cases currently under investigation. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints sent a statement to KUTV in response to an inquiry about Johnson's arrest. The statement said, quote, "The allegations against this individual are serious and deeply troubling. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has no tolerance for abuse of any kind. Those who engage in abusive behavior are rightfully subject to prosecution by legal authorities and also face loss of church membership." End of statement. And Utah Governor Spencer Cox has authorized the flag of the U.S. and the flag of the state of Utah to be lowered to half-staff in honor of former Queen Elizabeth II. Britain's longest reigning monarch died Thursday at the age of 96. According to the governor's order, flags should be lowered immediately until sunset on the day of Elizabeth's interment. Private citizens and businesses are encouraged to participate as well. KBNU Weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They want to understand your family, job, hobbies, and goals to earn your long-term financial trust. Visit adamswealthadvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today. Weather Service saying there could be some gusty canyon winds out of the east later on tonight, but also widespread smoke in the forecast from those Idaho fires. And then mostly clear other than that, low in the mid-40s. Patchy smoke hangs around Saturday night at least. High tomorrow in the low 80s. Sunny, a little bit warmer Sunday, around 86 for the high. You can always get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Did you know a block dryer vent is a real fire hazard? According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, there are tens of thousands of dryer exhaust duct fires annually, leading to many injuries and death. You should have your dryer hose and the area around it cleaned once a year and inspect the vent and hose for any blockages at least every 6 months. Don't wait for disaster to strike because your dryer vent is blocked. Give John Henson a call at the Duct Hunter. Call 770-4813 today.
Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
We'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
Welcome back to the For the People movie show with Andy Morgan joining us here in the
just thought of
studio.
a funny. Remember the Christmas Vacation when Clark gets stuck in the tree? A lot of sap in here.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why that just popped into my
Well,
head.
because
Actually, I
of
do know.
what you said before.
A lot of sap in
A
here.
lot of hair in here.
A lot of sap. So how much of House of the Dragon have you watched?
Episode 1.
So you haven't made.
I have things to say.
There's 3.
I'll let you talk about it first because mine's negative.
Well,
Mr.
So I'll tell you, I'm kind of. Here's my. It's the smoke. Here's my thing. I think it's great. I enjoy it. Like Game of Thrones. I think I'm just curious about the pacing, because, and then this will lead me into the thing I'm irritated about. So, House of the Dragon, we know there's a time jump coming up in maybe 1 or 2 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So for those that aren't familiar,
which actually I really think they should have made a bigger deal of making sure everybody knows that, because I think the slog that I'm going to describe.
I think maybe they will.
episode.
Well, and so here, let's pick. I'm gonna nitpick this a little bit. So, episode 1 of House of the Dragon establishes what's going on, who everyone is for the most part, and some big things go down, similar to episode 1 of Game of Thrones season 1. And when we get into episode 2, there's already a jump of about 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And then when you go from 2 to 3, right? I just watched 3 last week. When you go from 2 to 3, there's a jump of like 2 years, maybe a little bit more. And here's the thing. All you Game of Thrones season 8 haters that talked about, Gendry running from the rock to the wall or whatever, or how'd they fly from Dorne to or whatever. Yeah, well, there was two years there. You didn't cry about that, right? Like, yeah, give me a break. Anyway, the point is the other thing that irritates me about that is,
in this case, though, the time jump is actually a valuable plot point.
It is, and I will point out this too is Fire and Blood, which House of the Dragon is based off of, is only 1 book, and it covers a lot of time. Maybe 300-400 years, basically the entire Targaryen dynasty after Aegon leaves Valyria and conquers, Westeros with his 2 sisters. It starts from there. But the interesting thing about it is, I don't know. They've given no indication of So I don't know how season 1, right? Because Game of Thrones, you kind of knew, right? If you'd read the books, you kind of had some indication of what the flow was maybe in season 1, right? You're like, okay, maybe we'll just get to this point, right, in the first book or whatever. In House of the Dragon, I don't know. They're starting after one of the greatest kings, King Jaehaerys. They don't. We have nothing of Aegon the Conqueror, right?
No. Which I kind of thought they'd have something as like a prologue or something.
Well, and that's the question I wonder about is are they going to make it so that it's not linear, right? So maybe you spend, season 1 is, because what we're leading to here, just so everybody knows as well, is we're leading to this event in history called the Dance of Dragons, which was basically a Targaryen civil war. Where the house...
And also the title of the last book George R. R. Martin bothered to write in the series.
In 2011.
In 2011.
That was the best alley-oop since Stockton
11 years
threw
ago.
to Mark Eaton. That was a better alley-oop from the Joe Ingles to Rudy Gobert. Just trying to make it a little current. Someone's like, Mark Eaton, who's that? Anyway.
Larry? Was there a Larry?
George R. R. Martin, done with that guy. Just done. George, I hope you hear this.
I wasn't done until he started to get cocky about it.
He's just being...
like he's doing it on purpose.
And I want to know if HBO, if somebody's over there like, yeah, do it, George.
That was
talk sass, right?
Or they have no control.
Don't make George mad. Don't make him mad.
A quick thing on this. So I think Game of Thrones, one of the reasons it worked is George R. R. Martin's pacing. So a little background here. This is probably going to bore a lot of people. I'll be quick. George R. R. Martin was a television writer. So he talked about how he wrote these 900-page novels, only 5 of them so far, in 30 years. Anyway, he wrote these 5 novels.
When was Game of Thrones? The
first one was
wasn't
like
that in the 90s?
93, 94, something like that. Yeah, and it was every 2 years until book 3, and then it was 4 years. Anyway, he says he wrote these books with episodic television in mind, and if you read them, you see that every chapter bounces to a new character. You never get the same character in 2 chapters in a row, which is both disappointing as you start the new chapter and then great as you start.
And it's kind of clever
and
too.
It keeps you going.
Yeah, it does.
Like network television does.
Until Feast of Crows, when he's like, "Did you want a book of that?" But of all the people you didn't want to read about,
an entire book of just the people you don't like.
Oh, look, it's
so this book doesn't have that pacing. It doesn't have that. So hopefully so here's my concern. I watched the first episode and this is what I heard. And remember, this was a deleted scene.
Negotiations are continuing with the separatists. Peace is our objective here, not war.
You think this sounds like Viserys?
Yeah, this is how the series starts. Basically recreating a scene that even George Lucas thought was too boring for The Phantom Menace.
So
and yet these guys are like, hey, let's start the new series with that. It felt very.
Are you talking about the
Galactic Senate debating tax policy and tariffs?
Are you talking about the council?
The whole
episode.
About I felt like the whole episode had this very.
I liked it.
C-SPAN-y feel to it.
It does, but you know what I think.
And I didn't really like anybody, even the people I know I'm supposed to like because I read the book.
So I know people always say this. You got to watch 2 and 3. I liked 1.
That's fair.
And you know me. I'm not an objective Game of Thrones fan, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, give it all to me. I'll take it all. Yeah. I don't care, right? Like when they canceled the one series with Naomi Watts, the one that was like the 1,000 Years of Night, and they spent like $2 million on it, and I was like, oh yeah, here we go. And then they're like, canceled. I'm like, wait, no, can I still watch it? Could you send it to me?
I'm actually sad they canceled that because everyone will want to know now.
That's dumb. But going back to what you said, there's a couple of things that I would touch on. One is you think about the other thing about Game of Thrones is the production value increases season by season, right? As they got more viewers and more money. I mean, season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, actually,
it's like
they're kind of in a field in Iceland most of season 1.
Yeah,
I mean literally.
Well, and then
I visited the spot where they filmed it,
and the whole thing with the sets are smaller. They get.
I just want to clarify that isn't why I went to Iceland. I'm not that big of a fan.
I wish that it was.
But I did make a point to go to that spot.
Then in
Jon
season
Snow
8,
stood right here.
They basically built a whole entire Dubrovnik, a replica of Dubrovnik in Croatia.
They built most of that King's Landing Castle by season 7,
and they built pretty much an entire Winterfell for the Long Night battle. So the cool thing about the House of the Dragon is, like the sets, the costumes, I mean, all that artistry. You're starting at like a very high level. I get what you're saying.
It is very cool to see, and I would describe it as more atmospheric than the first few seasons of Game of Thrones. It knows who it is.
It's familiar
right from the start.
Yeah, it's familiar. And the problem is just like episode 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars. If you've watched that, you wouldn't go to the prequels and go, "Geez, I wonder what's going to happen here," right?
Yeah, and that.
Wait, he becomes Darth Vader? When did we learn that?
But I think one of the things they benefit from this is it's so far back.
Well, but they spoil it in Game of Thrones multiple times.
Oh yeah, they tell you
in season.
But we're not talking about anybody's dad and mom here.
No, but
not even grandparents. I mean, it's further back than that.
I will say this: that there's a part in season 3 where Joffrey is giving Marjorie Tyrell a tour of the castle, and he goes, "Oh, and guess who's buried over there?" And then and you're like, well, thanks for the ending of the House of the Dragon, right?
Yeah.
Someone's like, come on, man, spoiler alert. Hey, I didn't tell you what they said, but now you're going to go look, and then you're going to be mad at me.
You also should know. It's referenced.
Well, and Arya talks about, like, there's a scene in season 2 with her and Tywin where he said Aegon the Conqueror came over and conquered Westeros, and Arya says, well, it wasn't just Aegon, it was him and his sisters. And
Yeah.
then he talked about the sister's blade, Dark Sister, which is the blade that Daemon Targaryen carries in House of the Dragon. But so
now that's one thing that's cool is in episode 1.
That's how weird Matt Smith looks.
Yeah. Honestly.
He's a
But
weird-looking dude.
They are setting up, despite how bored I was with that entire... I watched the whole thing and thought, oh, wow, really?
I'm going to need you to watch it again.
I'm going to... Okay.
Will you watch it again?
I will watch it again.
committed
Well,
to
I
it.
plan to watch the whole season, no matter what. But I was bored with that first episode. And
It's very pomp and circumstance.
But what I did... One thing, a positive I can say, they are setting up some really cool characters.
Well, cool characters.
Really cool characters.
And having read Fire and Blood and knowing how this all ends up, this dance of the dragons, which again...
That's what makes her uncle...
Daemon.
There
are some
that's
legitimately
gonna be cool to see play out.
Like I would say, kind of red wedding type things that are coming, where you will go, that was not fun to see. And, the other thing I'll say too is one thing I like about season 1. I know you're like this boring pomping and circumstance, and I kind of agree with you.
I'm being too harsh.
No. I agree. It's not what we're used to, but that's the thing, right? And I think that's what's great about this is I said this to the group we were watching with. I said, I don't think we've ever watched Game of Thrones where there's been a nice king.
Yeah.
Where there's been a king that's like, hello, everyone, I'm the king, right? It was Robert who basically was king. He was dead by the time, right?
Yeah.
Then it was Joffrey. And then nobody.
I have to admit to this, too, and this is a struggle because it is so familiar. You used that word, and that's perfect. It is so familiar that it's hard not to be really, really cognizant of the fact that people you really liked from Game of Thrones aren't a part of this.
It is.
There's no Tyrion. He was one of my favorites.
And there's not, there's not an equivalent.
Yeah, and there's no.
You don't have
equivalent.
a replacement.
There's no character that is just like that, and
I wonder if that'll come with time because again, you think about it, like you like Tyrion from the get go, right? But we were talking about this too. Like, there's characters like that you hate at the beginning.
That's my favorite part of reading the books. You hate Tyrion until book 3,
and then you
love him.
But the same thing like with Jamie in the series, right?
Oh yeah, he's awful until like book 5, isn't it? Or
and then
Feast of Crows.
When he starts
book 4.
his little journey with Brienne.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing, like I don't know. There's characters I'd never liked. Obviously, you're never like, well, I kind of like Ramsay a little bit.
Yeah, Ramsay was always
when he's beating up Theon, you're kind of like, all right. But anyway, the bottom line is
it's the dad.
It actually
Lannister dad. He's always kind of a.
Yeah, he's great. He's like Darth Vader.
What's his name?
Tywin.
Tywin.
They greenlit season 2 of House of the Dragon literally the week after the first premiere because it was viewed by like 25 million people.
Yeah.
So
they're gonna have a hit on their hands. I think
old man Martin will sit there and rub his hands and keep throwing darts at Dave and Dan.
Well, I think they'd have to work.
I wanted 10 seasons.
I think they'd have to work.
I know they didn't have a book, but I just wanted them to keep making stuff up.
We've got
I needed more time.
One more break here before we don't have time
Pause.
for it. You're listening to the For the People movie show with Andy Morgan. And we'll be back right after this.
Weather changes are tough on your transmission. As we move to colder winter weather, AMCO Transmission invites you to bring your vehicle in for preventative maintenance before the snow flies. Have a diesel pickup, Cummins, Duramax, or Power Stroke? AMCO in Logan is your transmission specialist, and they promise to get you in quickly. For over 50 years, AMCO Total Car Care has been experts in repair for transmissions, brakes, tune-ups, and more. Find your local AMCO at 75 West, 2000 North. Call 752-1940.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
Trust this kid any further than I can throw him.
Well, with your bad knee, Ed, you shouldn't throw anybody.
The question I was going to ask you. Sorry, I remember the question.
Okay.
How many minutes do we have?
2 minutes.
I think you can decide this one. What is a more iconic synth from the 80s? Harold Faltermeyer's Axel F or Steve Winwood's Valerie?
Wow, that's a That is quite a question.
I thought about that when I was walking in.
Mallory. Now I'm going to have that song stuck in my head all day. Such a horrible song, too.
I would say probably
Like
Axel
Steve
F.
Wood.
Yeah, Axel
Yeah,
F.
Axel F. The soundtrack for
Or the Ferris
Beverly
Bueller.
Hills Cop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's always...
Was that the Kool-Aid Man?
That was... I didn't know this until years later. That was actually a song that was a hit in
It
the
is.
UK before they used it, but everybody thought it was made for that movie because it fit so perfectly in that final scene, which I thought was kind of cool.
And one extra question for bonus points. How many times did you watch Girls Just Want to Have Fun in the 80s?
The video?
With Sarah Jessica Parker. Remember where she enters the dance contest and her policeman dad says, "Don't you do it."
I've only seen it once.
Oh, well, we should have a watch party.
But I did see that movie with Rodney Dangerfield.
Back to School?
Back to School. Twice in theaters. Not by choice.
I'm not laughing because I'm mocking you.
Not by choice. I didn't have a driver's license
I'm
yet.
really proud of you.
Didn't have a driver's license
Really
yet.
proud.
Not by choice.
Proud movie, Dad.
Next week, Barbarian, maybe?
Yes,
You gonna see
exactly.
that?
And Pinocchio. We're just going to spend the whole hour roasting that.
That should be fun, actually.
I like Disney, but come on, guys.